The sahib's car roared away, leaving a cloud of dust in the deserted street. Only two cars and the catering truck remained. Abu pulled the gate closed, not bothering to look at Natsia. Natsia stared through the top rails of the black iron gate and prayed that the earth would swallow the sahib's car whole, or that a truck accident along the way would bring traffic to a halt, or that Parveen would be kidnapped at gunpoint. Anything to stop Shirzad's mother from reaching the station. The guests remaining in the house trickled out and left the party, oblivious to the commotion. The waiters, who had melted into the background during the argument, came forward and quietly began removing the chairs from the lawn and stacking them into the truck. Natsia allowed Amma to guide her back to the servant quarters where Isha and Mateen were huddled together. She climbed onto the Sharpai and pulled Isha close. Mateen wrapped himself around Amma's legs. "Have you eaten?" Amma finally asked. Natsia was silent. "I'll get you something." She placed Mateen on the Sharpai and headed to the kitchen. He immediately squeezed himself into a crevice between Isha and Natsia. Amma returned with a plate of leftover chicken tikka, curry, and rice. "Take this. No sense in not eating." When Natsia didn't move, Amma sighed and sat down on the edge of the Sharpai. The ropes creaked under her weight. Using her fingers, she squeezed at a piece of chicken tikka until the meat tore away from the bone. She buried the meat inside a ball of curried rice and then brought the mixture up to Natsia's mouth. Natsia turned her face away. Amma moved her hand closer, and the aroma of curry taunted Natsia's growing belly. How could she eat without knowing if Shirzad was safe? It was nearly midnight. She pushed her mother's hand away. "Starving won't do the boy any good," Amma said. Rage bubbled up inside of Natsia and burst from her throat. "You didn't do him any good either." "Why should I?" Amma asked tiredly. "He is not my son. He's not Abu's either. Why did Abu have to destroy Shirzad's only chance of escape? Why couldn't he keep quiet? Shirzad never did anything to him." Amma lowered her gaze as she studiously molded bite-sized balls of rice and chicken on the aluminum plate. "He's not destroying the boy's life," she said finally. "He's looking out for yours." "How?" Natsia's voice was brittle. "By blackmailing Baji to get Shirzad's hard-earned money? Have you saved any dowry?" Natsia groaned. "That again, Amma? I'm so tired of hearing about the stupid dowry. I had some money saved, but I spent it on Shirzad's ticket. Thanks to Abu, now even that is wasted." "You bought his ticket?" When Natsia didn't reply, Amma's hand stilled. "I knew you were involved. Didn't I tell you not to interfere with the boy and his mother? You have no idea what it's like to be Amasi's child. Their lives are so different from ours." "Aren't I Amasi's child?" Natsia flinched when she saw the pain in her mother's eyes. "Now, yes, but you weren't raised that way. I loved you and protected you, as I did all of my children. Some Masis are incapable of doing that. Their children are nothing more than another source of income to them. Isn't that what I am to you? Isn't that why you pulled me out of school to work?" Amma's voice softened. "If that was the case, why would I insist that you marry Salman? I want you to have a settled future, not clean houses for the rest of your life." "But," Natsia began. "Go on and say it. Holding back from me will only make it worse for you later. It's better that you speak now, when only we can hear you." "Fine," Natsia said, and she paused, choosing her words carefully. "What if marrying Salman is no different from cleaning houses?" Amma set the plate aside and wiped her fingers on a rag. "I know Allah gave you a better brain to think things through with." She leaned back on the Sharpai and pulled Mateen up to lie beside her. Natsia continued. "What if I spend all my life taking care of Salman's house, his mother's house? Abu said I probably won't be allowed to finish school after the wedding. That's your home too. It's your duty to care for your own. But what if I want to finish school? No one has asked me what I want. Not you, not Abu, not Uncle Tariq, and not even Salman." Amma chuckled. "Since when do we ask you? You've always known your fate was tied to Salman's." "Are you going to slap me too if I ask you how that is any different from the way Shirzad's mother treats him?" "No, I won't slap you, but it breaks my heart to know you throw me in the same pot as her. I saved every year of your life for the day you would get married. That counts for nothing? The dowry? Are you talking about the dowry again? Amma, do you know who stole your precious dowry?" Somehow, almost miraculously, Natsia managed to silence herself. If Amma ever learned that her own son had stolen the dowry she worked so hard to save, Natia was certain the knowledge would break her. Nothing, Amma, never mind. Amma lay back and closed her eyes. Mateen snuggled close, and soon he was sound asleep. Natia sat in the dim light of the servant quarters and stared at Amma. After a while, Amma opened her eyes. She stared at the corrugated metal sheet that served as their ceiling. I know, Amma said. I've always known. Know what? I know Bilal emptied my suitcases, just as I know he hides from me. Natia stiffened. How could Amma know? What? He knows how hard I worked to save for your dowry. It is the shame of what he has done that keeps him far away. All this time you knew? Amma nodded. Natia's throat tightened and her words came out in a croak. Did you see him? Did he say something? No, I haven't seen him since before your Abu got hurt. But the suitcase was not torn open. He used the key. The key I gave him to hold and protect for you. There was no other key. Natia's grip tightened around Isha's arms. When her sister complained, she lifted the girl from her lap and set her on the charpai. Her thoughts raced as she tried to think back to the day the dowry was stolen. Had she even noticed the lock was intact or the bag had not been cut? Anyone could have picked that lock. But why would anyone else want to? Why was only our house broken into and no one else's? Stop. You know as well as I do it was Bilal. Natia twisted a loose thread of her dupatta around her finger. So much for protecting her mother. I'm sorry you know. You shouldn't have to bear this knowledge about your son. Amma's eyes remained fixed on the ceiling. A mother always knows. Even without seeing, she knows. I know what each one of my children is capable of. I know their destinies long before they do, before you do. But one day, Bilal will have to come back. It's been months, Amma, and there's been no word. What makes you think he'll come back? When? I don't know, but he'll return before he dies, just as every child returns. He will come when he is tired and broken. He will seek forgiveness. Amma's voice was strong. He knows just as all children know that the gates of heaven lie beneath their mother's feet. The gates of heaven are closed to Bilal until he repents for what he's done. Natia slumped back against the wall, Prophet Muhammad's famous words rushing up from the farthest corners of her memory, retold by mothers the world over, ingrained since birth. Why didn't you tell me you knew? Amma looked at Natia. Because I didn't know that you already knew. Malia saw him, Natia admitted. I made her swear not to tell anyone. Why didn't you tell Abu? Because Bilal is like his father. Why do you think I work as a Masi? Because it was all I could do to protect Bilal from his father. They are the same. No matter how much they mean well, they cannot fight the shaitan, the devil, that lives within. That they know what is right, what is wrong, but they always do what they know best. Cheat, lie, steal. You think all of Abu's family is like that? All the men in his family, it's in their blood. Then why do you want me to marry Salman? Of all the choices you have, I believe that is the best one. You're just a girl, Natia. No parent wishes her daughter to be a servant or a street girl. You are better than that. I've gone to school. I know I could find something better, Amma. She thought of Miss Haroon. There are other possibilities in life besides servant, wife, or street girl. You know nothing of this world, Beta. Your dreams are like the rains. They may come for a day or two and fill you with happiness, but even the rain clouds must give way to the burning heat of the sun. Why? Because the sun rules this part of the world. Your dreams of school are nothing more than teardrops in a desert. What makes you think a girl like you could be someone when your brother, a boy with a degree, couldn't even find a job selling newspapers on the roundabout? It's time you opened your eyes, Beta, and learned the ways of the world. You must accept that marriage is the only way to protect you from the daily struggles that no female here could ever fight alone. They sat quietly, and Natia watched her mother drift off to sleep. She picked up the plate and ate cold lumps of rice balled together with bits of chicken. As she chewed the sticky mixture, she wondered if she would ever have the strength to make the sacrifices and choices Amma had made. She finished the food and stretched out beside Isha. She left the door of the servant quarters wide open so the sound of the main gate would reach her when the Sahib and Seema returned. Her thoughts swam together as she lay thinking of how much her life and her family had changed in the past few months. She wondered whether, if Abu's accident never had happened, She would still be at home in Gizri, asleep on the floor next to Isha. Would Bilal be with them? There was no way to be certain, but still the thoughts lingered even when the blare of a horn erupted in the night. They were back. Natsia moved stiffly off the Sharpai, careful not to disturb her mother and siblings. Barefoot, she crept from the room, squeezing through the narrow opening without touching the door. As she hurried toward the front of the house, she heard the iron gate swing open and the car sputter into the driveway. At the edge of the house, she peered past the hanging leaves of the rubber tree and the jasmine shrubs that rose up to the banister of the veranda. Was Shirzad in the car? Was his mother with him? Seema and the Sahib were alone. They entered through the front door without speaking a word. Natsia watched for a moment longer, then retreated while Abu closed the gate. What did this mean? Why was Seema letting her father stay? Where was Shirzad's mother? Had Parveen caught the boy at the station and taken him home? Or had the train already left when they arrived at the platform? The uncertainty twisted itself in her stomach. The idea of waiting until morning to know Shirzad's fate made her gag. She clutched her stomach and pressed a hand against the wall of the house until the heaving was done. Depleted, she stumbled to the outdoor basin where the dishes and laundry were done. She rinsed her mouth and splashed cold water on her face, then dried it with the bottom of her camise. She sat on her haunches at the rim of the basin, her face buried in the stained cloth. Tears soaked her camise and seeped through to her palms. Did she cry for Shirzad's capture or his freedom? There was no way of knowing, but she remained by the rusty faucet until her shoulders stopped shaking and her calves ached from bearing her own weight. When there were no more tears left, she wiped her nose with her shirt and struggled to her feet. She walked numbly back to her room and crawled onto the Sharpai. Dim light from the neighbor's house slipped through the crooked window slats of the door. Did Salman's bedroom have windows? She tried to think back to the last time she had been to Uncle Tariq's house, but it was too long ago. The home was south of Lahore in a small village set far back in the fields. The house had 2 rooms beside the main sitting area, and the meals were cooked outside. After the wedding, would she get her own room, or would they put a mattress on the floor for her? They would come for her tomorrow. Natsia turned toward her mother, only to find Amma awake, watching her. Natsia drank in her mother's face, securing the precious image for when she was alone, when she would need it the most. Natsia prayed silently for Allah to take care of Isha and Mateen, and especially Amma. She asked Allah to forgive her for what she was about to do, and she hoped that Amma wouldn't think she was abandoning her in the same way Bilal had. When the time came, Natsia wanted the gates of heaven to be open for her. Natsia went outside to the basin and washed herself before performing the last prayers of the day. She knew the time for the final namaz was over, but she wrapped a scarf around her head, stood facing Mecca, and offered the prayers anyway. When she was done, she returned to the Sharpai and kissed Isha's forehead. She hoped lines of worry would never crease her sister's young skin. Gingerly, she took off her scarf and covered her sister's feet. While Amma watched, she kissed Mateen, then gathered her belongings into a plastic bag. There wasn't much, only a few ragged shalwar suits and the precious pink chiffon outfit Malia had given her. When Natsia was done, she turned to Amma. Tears streaked her mother's face. Don't cry, Amma. I'm afraid for you. Amma's shoulders shook. But you know why I do this, don't you? Amma rubbed her face. Natsia set her bag on the ground and knelt down. She grabbed hold of her mother's feet. Please forgive me, Amma. If I don't leave now, I will die slowly, softly, in a house that is not meant for me. I can't bear to be Salman's wife and spend the rest of my life stifling my own heart.